What if the evolutionary advantage of group formation is a tribal war footing? This suspends normal activity and inoculates the group from dissenters and enemy propaganda. Being a temporary phenomenon allows them to quickly resume normal survival activities once the war is won. Totalitarianism hijacks this innate response by perpetuating the perception of danger. Would it be possible to reduce this response by exaggerating the left's narrative, turning both sides against the narrative?
Hold on. I am struck by this. I think I need you to read it again.
Yeah.
I came up with an idea on the road trip that Toby and I were on that is in very
Sounds like this?
similar territory.
Okay.
So I just want to see if it's the same idea.
This sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
It just came in like 3 minutes ago. What if the evolutionary advantage of group formation is a tribal war footing? This suspends normal activity and inoculates the group from dissenters and enemy propaganda. Being a temporary phenomenon allows them to quickly resume normal survival activities once the war is won. Totalitarianism hijacks this innate response by perpetuating the perception of danger. Would it be possible to reduce this response by exaggerating the left's narrative, turning both sides against the narrative?
Okay. I don't know about exaggerating the left's narrative, but let's put the rest of the model. So it's not the same idea that I came up with. It's quite a good idea. Let me just rephrase it, see if I've got it right. The idea being presented here is that when one is going to war, when your lineage is going to war, it ought to become deaf to things that could be propaganda, right? Your enemies may seed bad ideas into your mind, so you will fight badly against them.
Yeah.
And that this footing, this mass formation, is a temporary inoculation against things that sound reasonable because they might well be Trojan horse ideas.
Well, and dissenters.
Right.
He says here, so, enemy from within as well, even if those people don't view themselves as the enemies.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. A lot of it's true. I think I'm trying to figure out what I've heard pieces of this, thought pieces of it, but the question is how much is that model already reflected in Arendt and Desmet and various other people that we've talked about or two on the podcast.
Yep.
I will just say the idea that I came up with, which is, I think, related but not the same, had to do with the dehumanizing. Dehumanizing is a term I recognize as ironic here. But the dehumanizing that is inherent to the process of hunting. And it has to do, I want to cover this idea later, but there's something about the story of Piggy in Lord of the Flies.
Yes, now I've forgotten. Yes,
right.
Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies. That story involves dehumanizing Piggy.
Yeah.
And they hunt him.
Piggy's a little boy who gets murdered.
Right. And they hunt him animal-like, which is not unlike.
They give him a nickname that makes him sound like he's not human, that he's a hunt-worthy creature.
Yes, and they talk themselves into being indifferent enough to his well-being that he is killed by these other children. Anyway, it's obviously a fictional story, but nonetheless, there's something chilling and realistic about it and reminiscent of witch hunting generally. So anyway, my idea was over there. This idea is closer to the mass formation and the departure from reason that we see in these masses. And yes, the use of fear to trigger this. So the problem that I see in what's presented is it describes the pathological version of this. It describes a model that is not inherently pathological, right? That is to say, if we are to go to war, then we need to be immune to the propaganda of the enemy and to dissenters who might disrupt us. But then something takes control of that mechanism and uses it against the lineage's interest, which is not always the reason for mass formation, right? So this is actually the exact thing that Matthias Desmet and I disagreed over. Is my point, is not inherently pathological.
Right.
So anyway, interesting set of questions there for sure.
Yeah.